Welcome to a special episode of the Zencast. And my name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Zencast and the managing director of B Squared. This special episode is part of a series celebrating the award winners from the 2024 Nasen Awards. And in this episode, my guest is Natalie Hay, who was highly commended in the Changemaker of the Year category. And this category was sponsored by us here at B Squared. Natalie is a parent and campaigner, and it's that campaigning part that she was recognised for. And Natalie has worked in primary schools for over 20 years, providing training to schools and has been a carer for most of her adult life. And she runs a Facebook group with a membership of over 4,500 parent carers. The Nasen Awards, organised by Nasen, celebrate outstanding contributions to the education and support of children and young people with SEND. These annual awards recognise individuals, schools and organisations that demonstrate exceptional commitment to inclusive education and the advancement of SEND practices. And Nasen is a charitable organisation that supports professionals to support children and young people with SEND. And you will find links in the show notes to find out more about the work Nasen do, their CPD, their events, and also more about these awards. Now, let's get on with the podcast. In this week's show, Natalie Hay is here to discuss her work and why she was highly commended in the Changemaker of the Year category. Natalie is a parent and campaigner, and she was shortlisted for her part as lead on a campaign to make significant changes to the government's free school meals policy. Over 3 years, Natalie raised £8,000 for the campaign, which resulted in a change in policy this year. This positive move now means that the free school meals policy is fully inclusive for children receiving EOTAS or education other than at school, a move in line with Equality Act 2010. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on being highly commended in the Changemaker of the Year category. It's a really amazing work. And it was also the only category, I believe, where all the nominations either won or were highly commended.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
So I am going to start with that really obvious question of what does this recognition mean to you?
Well, first of all, congratulations to the Zencast as well for your win.
Thank
you. This basically getting shortlisted, first of all, for the Nasen Changemaker Award, I was so honoured because I put in so much work to getting this campaign off the ground, and I was really happy that this would give me a chance to shed more light on the fact that there's so many parent carers out there struggling, and that unfortunately there are still lots of children with disabilities who aren't having reasonable adjustments put in place to make sure that they get the help they need. So I was really happy that this would help me raise more awareness, really.
So this campaign isn't something you looked at happening miles over there. This was impacting you and your child?
Yes. So I've been a carer, unfortunately, for most of my adult life. First of all, to a parent, so I have a lot of understanding of being a carer, and then to my own child, who was first diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and then we found out he had Lyme's disease. And I had to give up work. I'm a primary school teacher. That's my profession. And I had to give up work to take care of him because he was so bad. He became bedbound, he had terrible headaches, brain fog. He was so ill, and I became eligible for lots of different benefits. But because of his disability, we weren't able to access some of the benefits. And one of those was the free school meals. And it didn't seem like anyone seemed to kind of care about that. And I kind of noticed, maybe because I'm from a teaching background, I thought, hang on a second, I don't think this is right. And it wasn't until the lockdown. Yeah, it wasn't until the lockdowns happened, because I didn't even think about the fact that we were eligible for free school meals because I'd given up work. I was on the carers allowance. But when lockdowns happened, we were immediately automatically sent a supermarket voucher through the post. Not through the post, sorry, it was electronically. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because suddenly the fact that all the children are at home, now all the children on free school meals are getting a voucher. But when it was just the children who had a disabling illness, like my son, who were off, they didn't get the help. So I assumed this would be something that should carry on. But as soon as all the children went back to school after lockdown, the vouchers stopped. And that's when I went online and started a group to find out if anyone else in the country was also like me, thinking that this was outrageous and unjust.
And is that the group you found? Is that group you have on Facebook with 4,500 members? Is that right?
Yeah, that's the group, exactly. It started off with just a few friends wondering what the hell I was policing on about, because no one else in the area really was like, no one really knew what I was talking about. But then I gradually found people across the country whose children were stuck at home. Some of them, there was one parent whose child was in oncology all the time, going to hospitals, and said that her child couldn't get his free school meals. Another person who's had surgery. And then it kind of branched out to parents saying, but my child can't eat in the canteen anyway because they've got ARFID, because they've got sensory medical process dietary needs. And the whole campaign kind of like grew, and autistic spectrum children and just lots of different children we found out weren't getting free school meals.
And was it purely because they're not in school?
So it started with being like my child who wasn't in school, but then it branched out to parents saying, my child is in school, but they're scared of going to the canteen, or it's too noisy, or they won't eat. They'll have to eat the same meal every day, or they have to eat something they feel that the parents prepared, or, and I'm very familiar with this because I've taught I'm a real neurodiversity advocate, and I'm doing a master's in specific learning difficulties at the moment. And I've taught a lot of children in the autistic spectrum, ADHD, and I know firsthand that if you're on the autistic spectrum, sometimes you need the routine and the stability of a certain meal at a certain time, and that can help regulate you and help you to learn for the rest of the day. So I started including, because it's an inclusive campaign, every child that wasn't getting their free school meals because of their disability or SEN.
Wow. So how many children is this impacting?
So I spoke to Disabled Children's Partnership and some other charities, and Contact Charity decided to support my campaign after I'd been campaigning for a couple of years. And they did a survey, and they said that it could help over 150,000 children in this country to get their free school meals.
That is a very high number, especially when these are the children who need the support.
Well, exactly. And that's what drove me on, because I was one of the lucky ones. My son was getting better, and I could see like the light in the tunnel, and I'm going to go back to work now. I'm going to start my master's. But I just kept thinking about all those parent carers with children with a lifelong condition. And I just couldn't just not forget what I knew was happening, that this discrimination was happening. And there were so many people out there that weren't getting help. So I thought, right, I'm going to try and do something about this. I'm going to try and see what I can do to make changes. I didn't know that I was going to end up changing government policy, but that's what ended up happening.
So how did it kind of go? You obviously had this intention. You're obviously asking questions, getting really non-committal, random answers. How did it kind of pick up motion?
Okay, well, it had a very ugly start. Okay. I used to cycle to my son's school to collect sandwiches to begin with. And then because my son was so bad, I had to get a carer to come in and take care of him while I went to collect his lunch. And it was ridiculous. So I asked for something more reasonable. And the school sent a box of food, and it was brilliant the first week. But as the weeks went by, it was appalling. It was moldy ham, eggs that were going off that day, peppers that when you cut them open, they had clouds of mold. And my son was disgusted, and that really upset me. But you know what? Thank you to that head teacher who thought that was okay to send that to me, because it instigated the campaign. After that, I decided I'm going to get this sorted out. This can't happen. This is just a disgusting way to treat a family.
I'm laughing because I'm the sort of person. I'm the sort of person who would make a plaque up and would send it to that person. Thank you for being so useless. You have now changed the lives of all these children.
Well,
apparently it's called passive aggressive, but it's something I've been all my life.
Well, my boys and I used to call it green eggs and ham. Remember when they sent us green eggs and ham after the Dr. Seuss storybook? I don't know if you know the storybook, but we used to make light of it. But I was really upset by it, and I did involve my MP. But they couldn't do anything. They were like, well, it's a difficult situation because your child's off and so your child's in school. So I started looking at the law, and I looked at the Education Act, and it said that children should get it in their place of education. And my son was being educated at home with medical home tuition. So I thought, well, surely he should still get it. And then Heidi Mavir, the advocate, she really inspired me because she was always going on about the Equality Act 2010. And I looked up the Equality Act and I looked up rights of a child. And I started thinking, I think that the government needs to update their policy and have EDI, equality, diversity, inclusion, in their policy. So I Contact Charity arranged for the Department for Education to meet with us and to put this forward to them. But they were just really like, don't know if we really need to. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
I was really shocked and really disappointed the first meeting we had with them.
Whenever I think of the DfE, I think of the MPs who are in charge of it, who are setting the direction and the definition, the tone. But again, I was reading something this morning, and it's often very not the MPs setting the tone. It's often that tone is within the DfE itself. That's not that interested, or maybe focusing too much on money rather than actually you're not the Treasury, you are the Department for Education. Your interest should be education and supporting all children.
Exactly. It was very disappointing. And I must say that the last meeting I had with the DfE was completely different.
Excellent.
But that was after legal action.
What was the legal action? What did you have to do?
So after, my group online had grown. I had done a petition which flopped. I had done, lots of media coverage. Did independent newspaper article, Daily Express, Mirror, everything, putting myself forward as this parent carer who's trying to fight this change. It's something quite humiliating. It's a bit of a stigma being on free school meals and being a parent carer. It's not easy, but I did all of that. And I was getting very tired, and Contact Charity said there wasn't really much more they could do at the time, but they were still supporting the campaign. And then I decided that I would try and speak to lawyers. So I went to my local charity, did this SEN lawyer clinic, and this lovely lawyer called Douglas Hammond from Gerrard spoke up and was doing free clinics. So I spoke to him, and he thought I was going to say, oh, my child needs this or that. And I said, you've probably never been heard this before, but what do you think about this whole national policy change that I think should happen according to this law and this law, the Education Act and the Equality Act? And, before this, I'd rung up, by the way, the Equality Commission helpline, and they'd said, no, it's not civil discrimination. I'd rung other places and they'd said, no. But this guy listened to me, and he said,
well done.
Thank you. He said, do you know what, Natalie? I think you've got a point. And, thank you for mentally stimulating me today. And he said, go to the big guns up in London, go and speak to Steve Broach at 33 Essex Chambers. And so I did. I rang him. I spoke to his clerk. He said, send me all your research. He said he's got all my emails, all 7 of them. He was kind of mocking me because I do a lot. I did a lot of research, and then they decided to take me on. He suggested I speak to a solicitor, and I was like, well, how am I going to fund this? And Steve Broach said, I think you should use crowd justice, because they couldn't do it for free, and he needed me to raise £8,000. So I crowdfunded £8,000 in 3 months via crowd justice, and then legal action started. I can't quite believe that I did that. It was just, I don't know. God, thank you, God, for making that possible.
It's like a mini version of that whole Postmasters episode.
Oh, not quite. That's amazing.
Not quite, but it was absolutely amazing. But watching the steps they had to go through to get that justice, and to go, yes, you have, but the money, and it's always that money bit. But you did it. You have made a change, and that change came out in March.
Yes. So basically what happened was the lawyers then wrote template letters for me. They said, why don't we write these letters that parent carers can send to schools and local authorities who aren't helping with the law? So if anyone wants these letters, by the way, they can find them on my group, Tigers, the inclusion group, education rights and support on Facebook, or they can find it on the Contact Charity website because I shared the letters with charity as well. So there's three things they did. They did the letters, and I asked them if they'd do a law webinar for parent carers. And I asked Contact to host that. And they did that. You can find that on YouTube. And they also took the government to court, which I wanted. The charity was a bit like, we can't really support that. But I was like, DfE aren't going to do anything. It's been 10 months and they're not doing anything. So basically, Steve Broach and Alex Rook said that they think that the government might be in breach of Article 14 of the European Convention of Human Rights. And they agreed that they might be. They finally wrote back to us saying they might be, and they agreed in writing to update the policy by March this year, 2024, to make sure that it's more inclusive. And they updated it from 3 to 19 pages. So I was very, very, very happy. And we had another meeting with DfE. And then you're saying about the DfE, about some of the leaders there. There was a leader there who spoke on the last meeting that I had, whose child was affected by not being able to have a meal in the canteen. So he understood, and he was amazing. And they listened to us, and they've now put case studies with supermarket vouchers for children on the autistic spectrum in the policy. They've made it. We asked them to make it really explicit so that parent carers and schools would see, what could be put in place to help the family.
So for you with EOTAS, you can get a voucher sent home.
Yep, supermarket voucher.
If your child is eligible for free school meals, but due to their needs cannot eat in the canteen, cannot eat that food, have to eat their own food, which is the exact same meal every day because that's what works for them, they get the voucher as well? Or they can gain. What happens with them? What do you know?
Yes. So do you mean if they have a lunchbox?
Yes, if they have their lunchbox, they have their own lunch, they can still get the voucher?
Yep. And then the parents can make the lunchbox at home and buy it with the supermarket voucher, and they haven't got to worry about the fact their child won't eat the school dinners.
So I reckon that bit there could affect a very big number of children because there are going to be parents who do not trust school lunches for whatever reason. They maybe think they're still how it was back in the 70s and that it hasn't changed, or their child, and they just, it's easier if I give you what you can cope with and what you want and what you need, but they are still eligible.
So you have to have a disability. So you have to have medical needs. So some kind of,
okay.
Not just anyone that feels like, cool, we'd quite like to have the lunchbox instead. It's like if your child won't eat the school dinners, and schools know when this happens because parents generally do try. No one wants to make a lunchbox rather than just send them in and let them eat the school dinners. So normally what happens is the child just won't eat, and then it's very stressful for the school, the child and the parent when they just won't eat the school dinners. Sometimes schools say, oh, can we buy something in for the child? And they agree to do jack potato every day, but sometimes the child wants to know that it was made in their kitchen at home, and that's because that relieves their anxiety.
Yeah.
And there are some amazing schools out there now who have helped children, even if they haven't got a diagnosis yet, because we all know how long the waiting lists are for diagnosis from CAMS and things like that. And there are schools out there who are helping children with suspected autism or suspected ARFID, which is brilliant.
Can I just say, absolutely amazing work. It's been really interesting hearing kind of the impact of what you've done, what that's been. And I know how many families, you've got 4,500 parent carers, but actually these 164,000, it could be bigger. And you've made a difference to all of those families. So absolutely amazing. Well done. And then hearing the steps you had to go through, it wasn't just send a couple of emails. It was full-on determination for a long period of time to make this change. Phenomenal. Thank
you. But I mean, I couldn't have done it without, all the parent carers who give peer-to-peer support to each other on the group. They're amazing. And my admin and my family and the lawyers and crowd justice and contact charity. So it's been a real group effort.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned a poem before we started recording.
Yes, I did. I was wondering if I could read a poem because, I mean, before I became a parent, when they first started talking about parent power, I was like, oh my goodness, more power to the parents. And they have no idea what a hard job it is being a teacher. They have no idea what it's like in school. And I was a little bit scared. And then when I became a parent myself, I realized, particularly a parent carer, that schools have no idea what it's like to be a parent carer. And there's a lack of empathy, unfortunately, and not everywhere. But I have a poem about parent carers. Okay, so if I could I'd love to read that. I read it I was very lucky to be invited to go to the charity awards with Contact Charity earlier in the year. I read it there as well. So it's called Open Doors. Fight for the children, fight for the frail, fight for the carer who can't tell their tale. Actions and remedies, empathy and support, not pity, not apathy. There's no time to retort. Equity is the answer, not ignoring the law. Let's make real adjustments. Let's open that door. Carers need change. Children need love. They need understanding from the leaders above. They don't need glory. They don't need shame. Keep your unfair allegations. Swallow your cruel, spiteful blame. We didn't choose this. We don't want to be victims, but we are stuck like mud in these unjust, broken systems. Help us to help our children. Do what is right. Offer support to a carer with no energy left to fight. Remember, because of each closed and locked door, carers and children lie disillusioned, broken, crying on the floor.
Wow. Can I put that in our show notes for people to read as well? Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure. I think I really feel that people don't know what's going on behind closed doors and that there are a lot of parent carers and children crying. And do you know what? I'm just happy that I was able, I know this is a bit of a pun to say this, but one piece of the pie, the free school meals, but one piece of the Sen pie I was able to get put in place for people. And the parent carers have to fight for so much and it's so wrong. And food insecurity is a big problem in families where there's disabilities. So, yeah, I'm just glad that I had the chance to help that situation.
Definitely, because there is before you become a parent, you have this lovely rose-tinted vision. You become a parent, you still have a rose-tinted vision of how your future life will be, and then it doesn't go according to plan. And what you thought would be is not. You have to make changes because you put your children first, and those changes lead to generally financial difficulties and constraints.
Yeah, exactly.
You want your best for your child. You can see those doors being closed or not even open in the first place.
Yeah.
And all you're trying to do is help your child have a life you want them to have. You say you don't want to be a hero. You just want them to be a happy adult who is involved in society.
Exactly.
Just like everyone else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just
like everyone else. Nothing big, nothing. But it's how can you get that to happen?
I think it's just exhausting being a parent carer in any way. And I'm helping parent carers now with going to tribunals because I went 3 times, and they're often quite angry and upset and they're worried and they've got so much to tell me. And I always make sure that I say to them, I know that it's really upsetting for you going through this, because they have their armor on, and there's people that say militant parents, and it annoys me because we have to fight. We're warriors that we don't want to fight. The first time I came into a meeting, I was crying. It got me nowhere. So you learn very quickly that you have to fight for your child because no one else will. And I always make sure I say to these parents, I know it's really upsetting for you, and I'm going to help you because I'm objective and I can write this letter for you quickly because you are you're like, 1 minute you're trying to care for your child, the next minute you're trying to be objective and write a letter, the next minute you're sending off an email, and it's just overwhelming and it's crazy. It's awful. And I know because I've been there.
That's the thing. I think when you're in that room, whether you're in an EHCP meeting, you're trying to is that, and it sounds heartless, but that person there, and you've been a teacher, so you are a professional talking about a child, and what you see in school is maybe not what they want to be, but you're not seeing everything. And then you've got that parent who is very emotional, and you're going, God, why are they so, it's all right, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Then you see it from the other point of view, and it's like they are emotional because they are drained, and they know that actually what's going to happen, because they hear all these stories, or they can only see the worst because doors are being closed. And it is very personal for those parents. They can't choose for it to not be personal. It 100% is.
I know. And it feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't as a parent. If you cry, oh, she can't cope, she doesn't really know what's going on. If you're tough, oh, she's really pushy for her child. It's very difficult. And also, unfortunately, that what I've seen in schools, some teachers are really caring and nurturing, and some teachers are very jaded and lack empathy and control freaks, bossy. And if you get that type of one, I've heard teachers say to me very judgmental things about children, and it upsets me. And I've said, well, no, that's not true about that child just because of their background. And I understand why parent carers get so upset and feel so judged. I've seen both sides. And that's why I've been saying about the unfair allegations as well, and the blame. There's a lot of parent blame happening. And maybe it's because of the broken system and the lack of support and the lack of appreciation for our teachers, who are doing an amazing job on very low pay. I don't know. Maybe it's the lack of appreciation for being a parent, because we all think we have to be that parent on the advert with the dog and the driveway and the 4x4 who's smiling the whole time. It's just all very, do you know what I mean?
Completely.
There's something wrong. There's a lot of pressure on us all. And on the nuclear family, there's a lot of pressure. They say it takes a village to bring up a child.
Yes, definitely.
And, I think people aren't talking about it because there's a lot of shame involved as well. And shame's one emotion people don't like to feel. And they don't want to be the parent that's not coping. They don't want to be seen as the family that aren't thriving. They don't want to just be surviving.
No. I'm not. I can go on that topic for about an hour there, but I am not going to. I'm going to resist, and I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And you'll find Natalie's contact details in our show notes. You'll also find a link to her Facebook group and a copy of that poem as well. And as always, you'll find the show notes wherever you listen to the podcast or on our website. Thank you for listening to the show. If you're listening to a platform that allows you to review the podcast or give it a rating, please give it a little review or a 5-star rating and let others know what you think. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, please send us a message on social media or send an email to hello@thesencast.com. The Nasen Awards, organised by Nasen, celebrate outstanding contributions to the education and support of children and young people with SEND. These annual awards recognise individuals, schools and organisations that demonstrate exceptional commitment to inclusive education and the advancement of SEND practices. And if you have no idea who Nasen are, Nasen is a charitable organisation that supports children and young people with SEND. And Nasen's goals include influencing government policy, providing information, training and resources to support practitioners, and contributing to the debate and affecting change to improve outcomes for children and young people. As I mentioned, you'll find links to the show notes on lots of things, but you'll also find links in the show notes to the work Nasen does, their CPD, and also their events. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next time with another episode of the Zencast. It is goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.